Welcome back to the Red Sector, a podcast about speedy motorbikes. My name is Matt Plansky. With me, as always, are my co-hosts, Josh Wilson. Josh, how are you?
Another weekend of racing, exciting racing as well in all three classes. And I'm ready to get dived into the nitty-gritty of each class. Not so much Moto2 because Big Sam Lowe's fell out.
We'll get there.
So yeah, we'll get there. I've spoiled it.
And of course, with us is our walking, talking encyclopedia of MotoGP, Bunno GP. Bunno, how we doing?
I'm very good, very good. I'll tell you, I'm very happy with it each week because I get a better compliment. So I'm just expecting it just to get better and better. But yeah, I'm also looking forward to getting into it, except for Moto2 as well. So yeah.
Well, we'll get there. And before we do, just a reminder to, if you enjoy the podcast, subscribe, give us a like and a review, all that fun, happy jazz. This was getting into it. This was an interesting race weekend. We're going to start off with Moto3. We're going to do Moto2 and then the Piste de Resistance, which is MotoGP. Moto3 wasn't as interesting as the first two races, but then again, we're at a completely new track. Not as much of a drafting as there can be at Qatar. This race mainly came down to two people towards the end there.
Yeah, it did. It did massively. Although to be fair, it was close and bunched up even right till the end. So considering it came down to two at the very end is quite surprising.
Yeah, I think the speed of that Leopard bike towards the end was probably the main reason it split off. But the general pace of Pedro Acosta was untouchable other than Dennis Foggia. So it was a case of those two in the last couple of laps. But yeah, I'll be honest with you, with one lap to go, I thought Dennis Foggia was just going to break away purely because of the speed of the bike. But that lunge from Acosta was just that is something else for 16 years old and your third race to make that kind of lunge on the last lap. That is special, very special.
16 going on 26.
Yeah, you think so? You think he's already got 10 years of experience by watching him. It's Marquez-esque, to be honest, especially them lunges he's doing, like no fear, he's almost like he's got no kind of respect for anyone else or himself. He's just dive bombing into the corners and not even worrying about the aftermath.
I kind of like that though, because he's almost come into the championship as though to say, like, there's no bedding in process. There's no kind of, let's give these guys the respect they deserve. He's like, I'm here to win it. And I'm not here to have a rookie season. He's there.
He's got nothing to lose.
Yeah, exactly. And why not? You know what I mean? He's 16, Red Bull Rookies champion, straight into Moto3. What has he got to wait about and, give the guys the respect for? He's quick enough, so I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
He's got time on his hands. He could easily do another 2 or 3 years in Moto3 and still have so many years ahead of him to get into MotoGP. So he's probably thought, I'm going to go in all guns blazing in my first season, and if it doesn't come off, I've still got 2 or 3 years left, really, of being young and able to get into Moto2 in my early years.
And hopefully he doesn't try, or Red Bull doesn't try to move him up too quickly, because we've seen in other racing series where if somebody's moved up too soon, they can be burned out too quick. I mean, the Moto2 bikes are so different from what he's on now and what he's been on before. If he is moved up too soon, it could do more harm than good.
Yeah, I think he's in a sensible enough team though with that. I think when you've got a team like the with the Aki Ayo team, and you've got somebody that runs two teams in two separate classes, with his experience and his almost like the prestige he's got within the paddock, I think if you were to give one team the accolade of knowing who is good enough to make that Moto3 to Moto2 jump, that is the team to be in, because you've only got to look at Raul Fernandez, who has had 1 year in that Moto3 Ayo team, and built his way up and gone through the IO way, started winning towards the end, and he's gone, yeah, you're good enough, gone to Moto2, and before I give any spoilers away, we all know, having watched the race, Ralph Fernandez is doing all right in Moto2. So
Exactly.
I think Aki Ayol will know if he's ready for Moto2 with Acosta, but yeah.
Foggy gave him a good fight though, and Mino as well was in the mix. Although Masia, he had that little wobble, or that little high side that kind of threw him off. I mean, he did get back on it and managed to finish. What, 9th did he finish? So he kind of
back.
Masia.
Yeah. But it was disappointing for him, especially because it was looking like he could have definitely been in for a podium if it had kept the 2 wheels on the track. But of course, who else as well? Artigas. I mean, geez, he could have been in the mix for a podium. But geez, Fernandez going straight into the back of him. Wow, what a bad piece to look.
I think that was the Rodrigo one. I think the Fernandez one was. It was.
Rodrigo.
Yeah, Rodrigo went into the back of him, which, to be honest with you, I find myself pulling my hair out with Gabby Rodrigo because he's been in the class now for it must be 8 years, 8 seasons, something like that. So he's one of the experienced guys, but you almost feel watching him, it's like watching the 16-year-olds. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, just the amount of mistakes.
Yeah, the amount of time. I mean, he's been in the class for that long. He's had 1 podium, and the guy is quick. There's no disputing that, but he's just constantly making these kind of mistakes and errors that put himself in a situation where he's only making the problems for himself. But I do feel for Artigas because you did feel watching him come through the pack that okay, even though the first 2 races haven't gone his way, Portimão looked like it was going to be a great race for him, but he's a little bit like Mcphee. He can't seem to really get off the mark, can he, for the first 3 races?
He just inherited McPhee's look for that race, I think, because that seems like something that would have happened to McPhee if it had been in the front of the pack.
Yeah, John can't catch a break, bless him.
No. Yeah, but another one. Going on to that, obviously John Mcphee finished 23rd. He started 15 seconds behind everyone else.
Yeah, because he was one of the people who had to start from pit lane.
But unfortunately for him, it didn't work out. He wasn't able to weave or cut his way through the pack, unfortunately. But he made it back in 1 piece, which is a bonus, I guess. But
yeah, I think it's a case with John just to get to Areth now as quick as possible, almost.
Yeah,
that's what'll be in his head, and just basically solidify his place in the championship fight. I think he'll be thinking anything less than a podium at Areth is a no-go. So
yeah, he can refresh, regroup.
Yeah, refresh.
So this race was I guess this race was always a write-off, knowing where he was going to be starting from. So it's definitely a fresh start in Jerez.
Yeah, definitely. But overall, Moto3, we've not even actually mentioned it, but if anybody hasn't watched Moto3, just a recap, the 16-year-old rookie did win. So
the top 3 was Acosta, Fangio, and Mino.
Yep.
If we're talking rider of the day.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I want to give it to Fangio or Acosta, because Fangio definitely was able to hold him at bay for quite a while. And it wasn't until the last lap that Acosta was able to make his move.
Yeah. He had a slipstream as well, Foggia, going into that straight at the end. He was just a bit too close to make it work.
Yeah.
But
if that finish line was maybe a few more meters down the straight, Fangio had it.
So I'm guessing, well, I don't think there's any reason to ask Bono who's his rider of the day was Moto3.
To be honest with you, I'm not going to be boring. I say boring. I'm not going to pick Acosta. I'm going to pick, and it seems a little bit strange for me to pick this, but I'll explain my reasoning. I'm going to pick Denis Onchu, who finished 15th.
Oh, really?
The reason I'm picking him is because he started in pit lane with Darren Binder and actually managed to break away from Darren Binder. And the pace he set was kind of like in the background because of obviously Moto3, you can't take your eyes off the front.
Right.
And he made up a lot of time from pit lane. As we know, coming from pit lane is not a case of just stick behind somebody and you'll get to the front. You've got to set real pace, start to finish. So for Dennis to get in the points from pit lane, he didn't win it like Acosta in Qatar, but Portimao's a little bit different, like Matt said at the start. You don't have that drag. You don't have those big lined groups. It's a case of, the rider makes a bit more of a difference. So I'll give it Dennis. I'll give it Dennis on to you.
Yeah, I'm thinking along the same lines as you, Bono, but I'm going to go with Alcoba, I think. Pretty much for the same reasons. Yeah. But I thought, you know what, he managed one place above Onshu, I think. He managed 14th, starting from the pit lane, and I thought that was quite a solid performance, really. And he didn't take anyone out, so...
you have to give that as an award.
So that there's a... No, I think Acosta is rarely rider of the day, but I thought I'd go a bit left field there and pick Alcoba.
That's a fair shout.
I'm probably going to go Fangio. Just the way he was able to... He started strong. He was able to keep it going throughout the race. And yeah, he lost the position, but he was always able to get it back. And like I said, if he was coming up that straightaway with so much speed, if that start finish line was a few meters, he had it. So, but moving on to Moto2, which I know you guys don't want to, but we have to because the lights go out, the bikes go down the road, and in turn 1, Sam Lowes goes to the moon.
Yep, into the gravel trap. Race over.
He high-sided that so high.
I mean, if
I thought there was contact at first.
Yeah, so did I. He just got his braking point completely wrong, and then the rear end just fricked him out. But I mean, typical Sam. I mean, I'm not having a go at him, but typical Sam. If you're going to crash, you may as well crash proper. He never seemed to have like other than the small crashes he has in like warm up. If Sam crashes and it's not a low sliding front tuck or anything like that, he just seems to say, you know what, let's go full bore, and he just sends it flying. But I don't know how he walked away okay, but he does seem all right.
Yeah, which is good. He just grabbed a handful of brake. I think he was going to go into... I can't remember who he looked like he was going to run into the back of. But he did grab a handful of brake to stop that. I think it might have been Remy Gardner, I want to say, or Fernandez.
I think my guess is one of the Red Bull guys. I think it was.
But he kind of sacrificed his own race to stop going into someone else, which is a fair play to him. But not to kind of disrespect or discredit Sam Lowes, but it did open the race up a little bit. It made it a bit more exciting than maybe it would have been had Sam Lowes been in it. If we're going off the fact that we think Sam Lowes would have actually won that race, but it did make it quite an exciting Moto2 race, to be fair.
Yeah, I think it was a case of if Sam would have not crashed, I think it was the closest that Remy had been to Sam, almost in a way of like it might be Sam chasing Remy. Because obviously Remy won there last year at Portimão.
Yeah.
And it was almost like, okay, Remy, over to you. Do you know what I mean? But I'm surprised that Remy didn't go and do that, to be fair. I thought Remy would be at the front the whole way and kind of everybody lead by Remy Gardner. Like, do you know what I mean? But it was actually his teammate that took the winnings on that front. I mean,
yeah.
Another guy that won there last year, he's won in Moto3, and then a few months later he's gone and won in Moto2. So this is
definitely a track that Fernandez likes to race at.
Yeah, I mean, I think I put it out like 6 laps to go when he was sat in third behind Canet and who was it for the life of me? Roberts. Sorry, I'll not mention that too much, Matt. But it sat behind Roberts, and I think as I tweeted it, Roberts went wide at turn 1, and you could just see Fernandez closing down on Canet, and you kind of got this impression that as soon as Fernandez got in front of Canet, it was almost like, okay, he's gonna break him. He's gonna gap away, and that's effectively what happened. But no disrespect to Canet, because on a bike that isn't the top bike, so to speak, he's looked brilliant this weekend. He has looked fantastic, and Roberts as well. Roberts has at Qatar not had the best couple of races, crashing out of one of them. Did he crash out of one or both? I think one.
One of them.
One
I
of
think
them,
it was
but
Qatar 2.
Yeah, Qatar 2 he crashed out of. So confidence-wise for Joe, even though he didn't end up on the podium, I think that's massive to know that he's back fighting at the front.
Yeah. It was just a solid result for Joe. He did fight right until the end, and obviously he did have a little contact with who was
Gardner.
it? Who was it? Gardner. Yeah.
Yep.
He had a little bit of contact with Gardner, and that was, I don't know. You could, I guess you could say it was a racing incident, but it did change that, because I think Roberts could have got second there. Definitely.
Yeah, it was for third, wasn't it? It was just for that final podium position.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I did think watching it, like as it happened, I thought, I don't know if that's very, like, I don't want to use the word fair because it's last corner, last lap, but I did think it was a little bit like, you know, dirty, if you don't want to use the word. But I mean, to be fair to Roberts, he took it like a champ. I mean, they were showing the replays and he was like laughing and joking about it. But how do you feel about it, Matt? Obviously, being an American, you were probably pulling your hair out as you saw him getting nerfed off. But
I didn't watch this race live. I watched it on replay later, and it was one of those things where, as I'm watching him go around in first, I'm like, he's not winning this. I can tell right now he's not going to win. I didn't go on social media yesterday, but I just could tell like he's not winning this race. And then as he slowly started to drop back, I'm like, okay, now where does he finish?
Yeah.
But, I mean, between him and Cameron Beaubier as an American, I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, Beaubier finished in, let's see here.
9th.
Yeah, finished in 9th, so that's a strong result for the Americans, really, 4th and 9th place. Especially from the first couple of races.
Yeah, I think Cameron just looks better every week. I've got to say it. I think if you watch him through the weekend, anyway, wherever he starts in FP1, he does get stronger every single day, every single session. I think looking at the lap times through the weekend, he was very, very quick through the first 3 sectors. It was mainly the last sector he was missing out about 4 or 5 tenths. He was really losing a lot of time. So it just goes to show with someone like Cameron that if he can just fine-tune these small areas, finishing in 9th in your third ever race in Moto2, like, he's definitely got the potential to be up there in that front 5, front 6.
And it's one of those things where, as he, you know, he's coming over. He's never raced a MotoGP bike. He's raced in Moto America, but coming over to MotoGP, these bikes are completely different. The way the whole team is structured is different. So it's going to take him a while to get used to it. But to see this kind of progression in just the third race, it's really like you look forward to what he can do going forward.
What happened with Bezzecchi? Because he was fighting at the front for a good period of that race, and then he just seemed to drop off. Was it something to do with his tyres?
Yeah, Bezzecchi was flying at the front in the first 5 or 6 laps. And I actually read a small thing on a debrief of Rossi's, just a side note, that Rossi got interviewed on the first lap of the Moto2 race, and he just ignored all the journalists and was sitting there like screaming at Bezzecchi. But yeah, he I think it was tyres he mainly mentioned. It was lack of grip. It was a little bit like Qatar 2. Do you remember when Bezzecchi was almost on that front pack, and then the last 10 laps or so, he just lost it with tyres. But yeah, I think he'd be a bit disappointed having led the race and being that front pack. But yeah, it's a weird one with Bezzecchi, but you know.
And we saw a few DNFs. Jake Dixon, he binned it, but luckily I don't think it was too bad. I think he walk away from that.
Yeah, I think Jake's all right after that.
So that'd be good. The most interesting one though was between I'm going to butcher the names.
Vietti and Buliga.
Buliga. Yeah, that's the one.
I'm glad you brought this up.
Vietti. Yeah, I mean that was he cut across him. It's
Yeah. Anybody on Twitter that wants to even... I saw one person say Vietti should have sat up, and it was just one of those where like I didn't even want to like react to it. I was just like, okay, cool. But yeah, Boulaga is just probably the most stupid move I've probably seen all weekend. It was never going to happen, and trying to stop the bike rather than just run off and let the brake off, run wide, get back on track. Trying to get it stopped on that, it's so one line through the first corner. It was just never going to work.
I felt like that was me on. That is literally how I am on MotoGP game. I am Boulaga. That is me. You're taking everyone out and then rewinding. But
I'm gonna have to keep out of the way of you then when
it's pretty shoddy. But I think that the extra layer to all of that was the fact that I think what Vietti has Boulaga's seat in the VR46 Academy as well.
Yeah, obviously, for anybody that doesn't know, these are both Italian riders. Vietti is in VR46 Academy, and so was Boulaga, but a lot kicked off within the VR46 Academy where 3 of the guys left / sacked kind of thing from the Academy, mainly because of their attitude, their kind of approach to the whole thing. And one of the ex guys taking out a current VR46 guy didn't exactly go down very well. We nearly had a repeat of Alcoba Mcphee, didn't we?
Yep.
Which I think, having seen that from last week, I think if that between Mcphee and Alcoba didn't happen, and they know the repercussions of it happening,
we would have seen some.
I feel like Vietti would have probably swung a left-right straight at Boulaga in the gravel trap, but thankfully he didn't.
Yeah, so that collision ended a fight, and was it Montella and Monzi that ended in a fire?
Yeah, that was a big.
Oh yeah, that was bad. Even again, I didn't watch it live. I watched a replay, but even that, I was straight on my phone finding out if they were actually okay. I can't remember which one got like hit by the bike. It was
Montella? Montella high-sided and sweep.
Oh yeah.
Manzi from the side, but yeah, I saw it go up in flames, and I was a little like your heart's always in your mouth when you see a bike go up in flames anyway. So it was a bit scary, but thankfully they both walked away from that all right as well. But there was a fair bit of taking out, wasn't there, this weekend? I think it's mainly because Portimao's a bit more one line than Qatar, so it's a case of do or die with a lot of the moves. I mean, even like the Acosta move for the win, that could have gone one or two ways. With how far back he came. It's so easy just to lock that front, and it could have been hay bales basically. But yeah, the fireball one was pretty big, but thankfully,
I think the elevation change makes a big difference as well, massively in terms of like your vision and your speeds and your braking distance and your lines. It is quite a unique track in terms of the elevation in the way it's laid out.
Very unique,
as we saw last season with Canet over that hill, and that amazing, like kind of, well, I say amazing, that heart-stopping moment where he's kind of crawling up, and all these bikes are coming over the crest of the hill, and you just think, God, if one's on the same line as Canet's on, it's going to be bad. But yeah,
that is almost linked a little bit when we get onto GP with the whole Marshall post. Safety kind of thing. We'll get into it a little bit more, but
we'll get into that.
In terms of rider of the day for Moto2, who are you guys going to give it to?
I'll let you go first, Matt. Just so it gives me more time to think.
I'm going to give it to Canet. I think because he's the only Boscoscura chassis bike to finish in the top 12. Like, looking at the results here, 1 through 12 is all Calyx except for him. So to be able to put that bike on a podium when nobody else could, the Boscoscura frames haven't been having a lot of luck. They didn't do well in Qatar, so to come here and be able to do what he did, it really showed something.
Yeah, I agree with that. He was going to be my pick, but I'll not be a sheep,
Said,
I'll
yeah.
not follow. But no, it's a very good pick, and literally you took the words out of my mouth why I would have picked him, because, like you say, that bike is not known to be competitive anyway. So yeah, it's a completely fair shout. I'm going to give it to Augusto Fernandez, because he has struggled a lot in the first two races. For what reason, I don't really know. But I think his performance was almost overshadowed by Sam Lowe's crashing out and Remy Gardner and all the rest of them almost breaking away towards the end, away from that pack. But I think 5th place for Augusto is a massive step, because, like I say, the first two races he's been nowhere. And the pace they started to set in those last 10 laps was pretty good. So for that reason, I'll give mine Augusto Fernandez.
I'll probably go the vanilla route. I think I'll go with Raul Fernandez, actually. I think he's, again, being the rookie in the categories, he pulled it out of the bag today, really did. Just kind of, I think because we were expecting Sam Lowe's to kind of, well, for it to be a Sam Lowe's kind of Gardner fight for the win, I think Fernandez today or yesterday really showed that he should be considered in contention for the title, because I just thought it was a solid ride for him, really. He had the duel with Canet, of course. It was close, but yeah, Fernandez, I think he really showed what he's worth in his medal today, definitely.
Yeah, I rate Raul Fernandez so highly. I did at the very start of the year, and again, he's another one that first race just missed out on podium. Second race got on the podium. It was like, okay, like it's only gonna be a matter of time, and I don't think Portimão could have come at a better time, because, like Matt said, it's a track that he loves. So I think he'll probably be getting Portimão layout tracks probably splayed across his house or something when he gets back. So.
Definitely.
But yeah, that's a good 3 picks there, I think.
Yeah. So moving on to MotoGP. We're gonna start with the starting grid, and then we will basically go through the events of the weekend. So our starting grid played out like this. 21st, we have Taka Nakagami. 20th, Lorenzo Salvadori. 19th, Ika Lackawanna. 18th, Danilo Petrucci. 17th, close your ears, Valentino Rossi. 16th, Enea Bastianini. 15th, Brad Binder. 14th, Pol Espargaro. 13th, Alex Marquez. 12th, Maverick Vinales. 11, wow, Pecco Bagnaia. 10th, Miguel Oliveira. 9th, Juan Mir. 8th, Luca Marini. 7, Aleix Espargaro. 6, Marc Marquez. 5th, Franco Morbidelli. In 4th, Jack Miller. 3rd, Johan Zarco. 2nd, Alex Rins. And pole position, Fabio Quartararo. Now, this qualifying had some incidents.
Yeah.
That deemed some discussion.
Definitely.
Mainly the Pecco Bagnaia thing.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. So basically what happened was Nakagami went down in one of the corners where Bagnaia was coming up to. Yellow flags go out like they always do for rider safety. The problem is, as the yellow flags came out and the marshal boards lit up yellow, the board closest to Bagnaia was on his right, but he's leaning left on the bike and cannot see it at all.
Yeah.
So by the time he comes through, he's already past the incident and now sees yellow flags, but thinks he's clear of them. And this was on the, like, time had run out. He was on his last lap, and when he crossed finish line, he thought he had pole position. He was celebrating, coming back to the pit lane. The whole 9 yards, and it wasn't until he got back and his crew basically don't go to Parc Ferme, come here, and had to explain to him what happened. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I saw Oliveira go down and I was a little bit heartbroken for him, because obviously it's
Was it Oliveira or Nakagami?
Yeah, it was Oliveira. when you said
damn it.
Nakagami, I was like, was it Oliveira?
I
was like, oh no, I
'cause
think I'm sure it was Oliveira because Nakagami qualified dead last because of the
and that's
injury.
why I thought he did qualify dead last, was because of him crashing out.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, Nakagami qualified dead last, and this incident was in Q2, wasn't it? So
True.
Nakagami would be in Q1. So
Right.
yeah, it must have been. Yeah, it was Oliveira. You're making me doubt myself now, and I'm like, oh no. But
Something. But anyway.
But yeah, it was a case of like that. Never in a million years, if you're Pecco Bagnaia, you're going to see that yellow flag. Like nobody.
No.
You don't even need to ride a bike to know that at that speed, in that pressured situation, not even in like FP1, FP2, you're not going to see a flag on your right hand side when you're cranked all the way over on your left hand side, dipping down and flying back up through a corner. Like there's no way you're seeing that flag. And just on that note, I am going to just blow my own trumpet a little bit. Me and Josh did the last podcast, and I did predict 138.4. And I saw it come up, and I was like, I am the new statistician for MotoGP. I felt a little bit like Martin Reigns.
There's a
I can't
reason
remember what
why
my
I
prediction
said
was.
You predicted even quicker. You predicted 138.2.1, actually. Yeah. And it came up, and I was like, I was ready to tweet, and then I saw it come up like it's being reviewed, and I was like, this would be perfect because I predicted it right, and it got chalked off. So I was a little
put
bit
a word into the stewards, so
to
get it chalked off.
So I have been in touch with the Algarve officials and just let them know that I will be putting in a court case pretty soon. But
a formal complaint.
I was a little bit miffed, but it's ridiculous. Yeah, they need to sort that out. They need to move it to the left in any situation, whether it be Moto3, Moto2, MotoGP. It can't be on the right.
And Rossi even like came out. I don't know when he said this. I heard this on another podcast where it comes down to money. Basically, to put marker boards or marshal boards on either side of the track would be double the money, and you want to try to have them every like in a certain distance. So to put them up would cost even more money, and it's basically the track's trying to save a little bit of money. I mean, this is whenever this happened, my first thought was Lewis Hamilton at Monza last year.
Yeah.
Where it's the board's on his left, he's looking right coming through a turn. Yeah. He's never going to see it, just like
he's not going to be looking at it. Yeah.
Bagnaia is leaning all the way, like he cannot see it because of the bikes in the way.
Yeah.
It comes down to you either have to, I don't want to say put some leeway to the rule, because overall it is about rider safety and marshal safety, because they're out there trying to get the riders, get the bikes out of there. You either have to give a little bit of leeway or get marshal boards on either side of the track. You know, if wherever you have them positioned, have one on the left, have one on the right.
Yeah, basically that. There's no other way they could do it unless, you know, in years to come when technology is better, they could have some kind of, I don't know, I'm probably thinking the realm of fantasy, but something on the wrist which would buzz when there's a yellow flag in their sector that they're in. That would probably sound stupid, but you know, something where they could maybe, if they're not able to see a flag, they could actually feel a flag, so to speak.
Right.
It probably sounds silly, but anything to avoid something like this, because we have obviously MotoGP, we have BT Sport covering MotoGP in the UK, don't we, Bono? Yeah. And I don't know if you picked it up, but one of the commentators was saying that which one who did a bit of racing himself?
Michael Laverty, or you're on about Neil Hodgson?
Yeah, I think it was Laverty. It could have been Hodgson, one of the two. Said that in his position, you're not going to risk slowing down for that yellow flag because you don't know if it's just a non-event. You're not going to risk your flying lap, and especially if you're doing red sectors, you're not going to risk that for something, you know, that could be so minor that could clear up in a couple of seconds. You're just going to go for it and deal with the consequences afterwards. Right. So it just does make sense what Bagnaia did in the end. Just, you know, hell for leather. You know, he didn't see the yellow flag, but I imagine that if he had seen it later on, he would have thought, I'm just still going to go for it anyway, because who knows? I'm either going to, get this pole position because it came to nothing in the end, or I'm going to get the lap time deleted. But at least I gave it a shot. So yeah, he'll probably be kicking himself just for the fact that he didn't get that pole position. But yeah, I guess it could have been a lot worse. It could have been him in the gravel. So
yeah, I mean, my view on it is simple: that for anybody in that circumstance, from the track's point of view, to say it's got to be on the right or it's got to be on the left, or like if it's all on one side or whatever with the new screen inside or what, that's so contradicting, considering coming out of turn 5, if you think when you dip that back straight and you dip down, you turn left, that left hairpin coming out of there, I'm 99.9% certain that there's a screen on the left-hand side there. So to say that it's only got to be on one side, or this track side thing, I think it's just absolute just rubbish to kind of
bizarre,
make up for it. And the main point here is the fact that at the end of the day, whether it's a lap time, whether it's a qualifying time, whether it's you dawdling around, so to speak, and you're slacking off, the rider's safety is the most important. So if he can't see that flag, even if it's like an oil flag, and he's just going around there at whatever speed, you don't need to be going very quick to slip on oil. He could fire his bike down the road, having not seen the flag, and puts other people at danger anyway. So either way, I think they do need to sort that out, because F1 or GP, they're not looking right going downhill to be going left. No one's looking over at the right-hand side. And even if they did, they put themselves even in more danger by not looking where they're going. So
but there's doesn't make any sense. Like we said, there's no other way for them to know. We don't have voice comms any as well. So if someone on the pit wall can't, say to him, look, we've got a yellow flag in sector, whatever it would be. So there is, unless they sort it out, there's going to be no way for them to know, especially at Portimão and at other tracks as well, that share the issue. But another problem was track limits for Vinales.
Yep.
Wasn't it? The old track limits.
As your hands go on your head. And I mean, this year they implemented probably the greatest thing I've ever heard of for track limits, where there are sensors that if you go a fraction over the line, your lap's invalidated. F1 needs to adopt this immediately, because this would solve so much like controversy in that series. But this is one of those things. You're either they have to find a good middle ground, because you either have the sensors that are going to be super critical, or you have the cameras which which rely on the stewards reviewing it to say, oh, well, was he? This camera angle is kind of blurry, and you got to find that middle ground.
Yeah, it is frustrating to me, because it's like in football with the VAR debacle and
offsides.
They're putting offsides, putting lines down, and it's literally millimeters. And it's the same case here. How much difference is that making? Same in football, the millimeter where someone's a millimeter offside, where it probably wouldn't have made any difference. Here, that Vinales, that tiny bit he was outside of track limits, that little minute bit, how much difference was that?
I'd argue that if anything, if we're talking this amount of detail, I think he's losing time, because if his part of his tire is not on that curb and it's hanging off, then he's not got full contact with the tire.
Exactly. He's not maximising it.
Yeah, those sensors are saying the tire has touched the green. So if his tire is one, I'm using my hands to describe this, but it's like his tire's at one level and then another part of his tire is at another level, like whether it's higher or lower, that is not maximising his potential anyway. So if anything, he'll be losing absolute minute amounts of time. But again, he's losing time. But even still, I mean, it is so frustrating, because I think Neil Hodgson on BT did say, and it's a fair point, if you're on the bike, how do you then know if you are or not on the curb, because you can't
You
feel
have
that.
no idea.
You
You
cannot
can't.
feel the slight minute detail of a millimeter on the green. You
And
can't.
it's not gonna trigger any sensors on your bike to tell you as
No.
well.
And
Mhm.
again, the main sensor is feel. And if they can't feel
Yeah.
that drop, they're just going to think that's fine. So they do need to find a middle ground, which does come with trial and error with this sort of thing. But 2 lap times, I was pulling my hair out. Like, I'm not even going to sit here and lie. I was so frustrated because I think the time that he did, if it wouldn't have been for that one, the main one that got pointed out, he would have been on the front row, which leading us on to the race. As we know, if you're on a Yamaha and you don't qualify minimum front 2 rows, it's only going to be a long day. So
Yep.
yeah, we can move on from Yamaha. We can move on from Vinales. We don't need to mention it.
Well, no, because we have to, because Vinales went from 12th to 20th, and the Yamahas don't have the launch device that a lot of the other bikes have, and it's starting to show, because even Quartararo went from pole to 6th place by the end of the first lap. So it's really shown, like, no matter where you qualify on a Yamaha, you're going to lose about 6 places, if not more, because you're going to have Ducatis flying past you.
Yeah, I think I'll say it to a mate of mine that they can forget it when it comes to places like Austria and whatnot, because one, a Yamaha's not going to qualify on pole at a place like Austria. So if they're on the second row of the grid at best, let's say, and they still don't have a launch device around a place like Austria, they are not even looking at like top 10, maybe top 12. Like, it sounds like I'm being over the top, but Yamaha really need to fix this problem, because if they don't, at tracks where, Quartararo and Vinales are not going to be the quickest guys race pace at every track, or one or the other. At Qatar, it's been Quartararo or Vinales, and on race pace, through the like FP4, Vinales and Quartararo at Portimão were the quickest again. But that's not going to be the case at some other tracks. So if they don't sort this race start device out, this launch control or whatever it might be, they are going to struggle. And I've said it on Twitter. You don't win championships by if you've got a bike that if it qualifies first, it ends up 6th by the first turn. It's not always going to go your way like it did this weekend just gone. Like, people can say, well, it has, because it has gone his way this weekend, but it doesn't always work like that. So they've got they like I said last week, Josh, with the podcast that we did, you can see even after he won the race, Quartararo at Qatar, he went straight to the Yamaha guys and said, launch device. As I'd say, that's
how was that going?
That needs sorting. So they need to fix that massively. Like, that is the biggest thing for Yamaha now. Nothing else. That's the main thing.
The other thing with Vinales is he fitted the rear hards for the race, I believe.
Both Yamahas did.
Yeah. And for Vinales, I think that was his downfall for him personally, because it didn't offer him anything. I don't know if he was thinking that later on in the race it'd give him a bit of life and he could fight through the field again like he did at Qatar. But yeah, there was just nothing there. He just was not competitive at all. He just stayed at the back. And maybe if he'd have put rear mediums on, it might have gone a little bit different, or rear softs, it might have gone different. But I feel like that was a huge mistake on his part. Just sticking with the rear hards.
Yeah, the main thing with the Yamaha, it just seems like you watch it Friday and Saturday and you think it looks amazing. And this goes back to like last year and 2019, where the problems have started to creep in. And I'm saying this, Yamaha have won every race so far, but you know what I mean in terms of you watch it Friday, Saturday, and you think, great. And then you watch it Sunday, and it genuinely looks like they've brought a brand new bike. It looks a complete different bike, whether it's good or bad. It's different. It's black and white compared to a Friday, Saturday thing, which obviously, you make a bike for the race. I get that. But we're talking complete different bikes. I mean, take Austria last year. they qualified like a standard qualifying for Yamaha, and it got to the race, and you've got bikes that can't brake, all the Yamahas across the board. You've got bikes that are revving through the roof that they've got to like. Do you know what I mean? It just seems like for Yamaha, they can't just settle a bike down for a race. I just don't really get it. It seems to be if one of them works really well, the other one's shocking. If one of them's middle ground, the other one's flying or doing awful. I'd be pulling my hair out working in Yamaha at the minute. It's so inconsistent.
Well, and it's not just those bikes; it's the Petronas Yamahas too.
Yeah,
because you look at this weekend, and Morbidelli did really well. Rossi did horrible.
Yeah. I think Morbidelli being on that like 2019 spec bike, I don't know if it just suited Portimão a bit better, or if it's starting to come to life for Morbidelli now. But I think a fourth place for Morbidelli was probably a lot better than he could have hoped for, really, going into this weekend. Because it's something which, again, looking at the results of both the Qatar races where he was absolutely nowhere, this is kind of a little bit of relief, a bit of pressure off him, I think. Because I think if we're seeing, we could be seeing the old Morbidelli now, and I'm hoping so. And I'm really hoping in the next few races, especially coming at Jerez, to see him maybe fighting for a podium or maybe even a win. But I guess with Morbidelli, we'll have to see. Because again, Rossi as well on the other Petronas bike, it's not looking good for them overall, is it?
Yeah, it's a good point you both brought up because, again, it just adds to this inconsistency point because you've got Petronas, you've got a 2019 bike that has performed well and got P4. You've got a 2021 bike that hasn't performed well, but the same bike in the factory team has won, and that also the same bike as well in the factory team in Viñales has struggled and then come good at the end of the race. So you've got four bikes, one of them a 2019 spec, but the three 2021 bikes have all gone different ways. And they're not all the same riders, but like Matt said, you've got Quartararo and Viñales both with that hard rear. One's gone and won the race, and one's gone backwards.
Yeah.
So again, it's just like, I don't know. Honestly, I really don't know what to say with Yamaha. It's baffling, and people will probably listen to this thinking, people listen to this thinking, well, they've won all three races, but people watching it closely enough will know that it's so up and down with Yamaha. It just is.
Yeah,
it's almost like they've. Oh, Matt.
No, good.
I was just going to say, it's almost, in a way, that you could say they've not been gifted the wins, but the way Ducati's to lose, and they have lost them, or especially the first two rounds anyway. So it's not, although they've, like Bruno said, they've won the first three races of the season, it doesn't, not everything's not as it seems. It's not as rosy as it seems at Yamaha.
Yeah, I mean, the last round of last season, you've got, like we mentioned in the last podcast, you've got three of them that I've just mentioned, Rossi, Quartararo, and Viñales, all trailing around at the back with, we'll get onto him, but with Rins. And then all of a sudden, everyone thinks that Yamaha are going to just breeze the championship because they've won Qatar 1 and 2 and Portimão. But personally, I'm not convinced at the tracks that are completely against the Yamaha bike, like your Austrias. I'm not as convinced with. I don't know. I think with Honda and Ducati, they'll go to tracks that don't suit them, but they'll still pick up like a decent result.
Yeah.
But the tracks that really don't suit the Yamaha, I don't think it's going to be like that. I think it's going to be the fact that they'll really struggle. I could be wrong, but I don't know. I will happily, very, very happily be proven wrong. But I don't know. I'm not convinced. And it sounds stupid. I know I've said this. It sounds stupid, but you know what I mean. It's just, it's difficult.
Yeah. One last point about the Yamahas. This is a little bit of a kick between the berries. Vinales was dead last for almost 3 laps. The only divider in there was Pol Espargaro dropping back to dead last, which moves us on to our next point. All of the major riders who crashed out in this race, we had some big names in championship positions too.
Yeah.
Go out of this. We had Pol Espargaro go down on lap 21. Jack Miller go down with 20 laps to go. Rossi with 11. Rins with 7. And then Zarco a lap later. If there was ever a race to shake up the championship standings, it was this one.
Yeah.
Zarco was definitely the surprise, I think, of anything. I think just to break them down a little bit.
Shocked.
Yeah, Rins, you knew that Quartararo was basically seeing that Rins was able to keep up with him, but I think Quartararo knew that if he kept pushing the pace, Rins either had to go hell for leather or back off. And Rins went hell for leather, and it paid off for Quartararo. But Zarco, he crashed there, didn't he, previously in qualifying at the same corner he crashed out in the race at the top of the hill. Was a big surprise. Pol Espargaro retired to a brake failure, I believe it was, which is a little bit.
Yeah, I saw him pull into the pits, but I didn't know much else about what happened.
Yeah,
but I saw a replay where he crashed. I want to say it was in the last turn.
Yeah, that was in. That was on Saturday. Yeah, that was on Saturday. Okay. That was. But he got away with that one. He got away with that one massively. I mean, if it had just getting it a little bit more throttle on that crash, that could have been a lot worse. But Paul's made of nails, to be fair to it. Well, they all are, but yeah, the Rins one was forced from Quartararo. It was a case of I think he could have settled for second and just sat at his own pace in between Fabio and Mir and Pecco behind, because they split away, didn't they? Rins and Fabio, they kind of went away.
They had built up a gap because when Rins went down, Quartararo was 5 seconds ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, it was 4, and then he built it up to 5. So there was a gap. There was a gap for him to just sit in between.
Yeah,
really, but
he just pushed his luck. He was riding beyond his limit at that particular point, trying to keep up with Quartararo, and it cost him. As we know with Rins, usually as it goes with Rins, is he pushes hard early on in the race, and then kind of either starts dropping down the order or crashes out in the second half of the race. And the latter happened this time round. But it is annoying because Suzuki needed them points, and it felt like he'd thrown it away massively. In my opinion, there was no need for Rins. I know he's desperate for another win. He's desperate to fight for the championship because last season he thought he should have been in Mir's position, but it was just silly for him to try and push beyond his limits to keep up with Quartararo and to try and take the win.
Yeah. I think if you look at it in a grand scheme of things, you've got Mir behind him who knew he couldn't go with Rins and Quartararo because he wasn't willing to risk the tyre, and he knew that if he did try to do what Rins did, I mean, Rins was I think he was 1,000th of a second quicker the lap before. He was matching Quartararo's pace, but everyone knew Quartararo could keep that pace going for the next X amount of laps. But Rins was kind of pushing his luck and was either going to be you've either got to put a pass on him and slow him down, or you've got to back off. And obviously he tried to go pushing for it, and he didn't get the result he wanted. But Mir sat back with Pecco and was like, look, I'm either going to get 3rd or 4th before Rins crashed out, but it's the sensible option because I can't match the same pace. He knew the bike wasn't able to do it. But looking back at last year, that's why Mir won the championship, because when he couldn't go fighting for the wins, he was there 3rd, 2nd, 3rd, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, kind of, picking up solid points. And if Rins wants to be in contention, throwing it down the road, chasing for wins, I'm sorry, but me personally, I think if Rins would have even got in front of Fabio would have got back past him and just broke away anyway. I think the sensible option for Rins would have just been settling for 2nd or 3rd or 4th if the tyre didn't last, but it would have been better than going for it.
Yeah, Mir knows when to pick his battles and when not to, and Rins, it seems, doesn't at the moment seem to know how to do that. He's too blinded by a win. He's trying to get another race win, I think, and he's too focused
Yeah.
on that. It's all or nothing really with Rins, isn't it?
Yeah.
And on the other falls, Jack Miller again. Jesus, what he's
That's
having.
one I was
I
just
don't
about
think.
to go to.
Yeah. I think we were on the same page there, Matt. He is having. I don't think his season. There couldn't have been too much of a polarization there, really. You know, pre-season he was the man to beat. It was Jack Miller on top of the world. Who's gonna topple Jack Miller? Who's gonna take him on? To now where
Right.
he's got 2 9th places and a DNF.
Yeah.
It's not looking good, and the pressure's on big time.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the pressure of being at the factory Ducati. I don't know if the team is putting any pressure on him. I don't know if it's just something, mental where he's had stuff going on, but something is not right. We saw he topped testing. He's been able to not really qualify well, but he's up towards the top, and then it's like he gets into the race and it just all falls apart. And he's either doing something like Qatar 2 where he's trying to crash in a mirror and ruins his race, or he just crashes out like this race.
Yeah. With Miller, I think you're right, Josh, in that, and I said this as well before the season, that he kind of had this cloud above him that was like, this is the guy. He's not moving manufacturer. He's on the same bike, but within the factory team. It was almost like we're going to get a more improved Jack Miller. And I don't believe, he's not got worse or like had something dramatic enough to change him. But what it is at the minute that just isn't going his way, I'm not entirely sure. But it was the case of before the season, it was nobody looking at Yamaha because of how last season finished. No one was looking at Marquez because obviously with the injury and everything. It was almost like a little bit like with Dovi in 2020, where everyone went, right, this is your time. Do you know what I mean?
Time to shine, yeah.
This is it. And Miller's not the kind of guy that really needs bedding in a sense, I don't think, in a factory team. I think he's the kind of guy to take to that like a duck to water. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if anybody does know, and I don't want to get too graphic on it, but when he did crash, the arm pump injury that he's just had, he actually did rip all the stitches out of that injury, which
so it's kicking him when he's down, really.
Yeah, that is a nasty, nasty crash.
But you could just see body language as well when he went down, how much that meant him crashing out. Because he's probably behind the scenes, he's probably been told or he's been alluded by Ducati factory, like, this is a race where we need, as a team and personally, you need to perform after Qatar. And you could tell by his body language he was really, really deeply kind of upset and angry at what had just happened. And it's something he just does not need. Especially everyone thinking Lightning just strikes twice and Ducati's only championship was with an Aussie, and they're thinking, oh, here we go, we've got another championship we could get, and it's going to be with an Aussie, and now it's up in flames a little bit. So yeah, it's a tough one. But on the other side of the coin, you've got Bagnaia, which I like Bagnaia. Since I saw him last season, I rated him in the races we actually saw him in. And going into the season, I did say, I think in the first podcast we did, I did say that he was going to be a dark horse, that he might, surprise us with a few results. And I think he's on track to do that, definitely.
Yeah, I did feel a little bit bad. I think I mentioned it when I took him out of my fantasy team, and lo and behold, I took him out of my fantasy team for the home man, and the home man crashed out, and the guy I took out got on the podium. So, but yeah, all jokes aside, Bagnaia, I mean, Ducati would be looking at him as though to say, well, Jack's not doing great, but, the supposed, I don't want to label him the second guy in the team, but Miller was chose first for that team. He was signed very early. He was the guy to replace Dovi. And it was a case of Zarco, Bagnaia, Market. Like there was a lot of names being thrown into the hat before it was confirmed to be Bagnaia. So that gave me the impression that Miller was their guy. Whether he still is or not, I think people will say, yeah, Jack's our guy. And it's not really a Ducati will probably say it's not a first and second rider. But I think we all know that Miller's their main guy. So for Bagnaia to be knocking up podiums and Miller be throwing it down the road and getting into scuffles like he was with Mir, I don't think he'd be going down too well with Ducati. And obviously the arm pump injury and everything else. I think depending on how good he is when he gets back to Jerez, I think that might be the last straw that Ducati kind of give him with, almost a bit of a cushion for him to say, get that one out the way, but, you are our guy, so come on. Like at the end of the day, it's not like he's been on the podium and then been throwing it down the road. He's yet to hit the ground running with Ducati.
Yeah.
So they will be looking at this like, come on, like we need you to be doing what we've signed you to do. Like you say, this whole Aussie Ducati like storyline that everyone seems to love, it was written. Everybody wanted that again in Ducati, and the fans of Ducati wanted it. And at the minute, it couldn't really be going too much worse for how well they wanted it to go and how well they thought it was going to go. So yeah, it a bad weekend for Jack. You could see he was distraught. Even in the garage after, he looked clueless. So
yeah,
I heard him speak to Marquez as well after the race, and he said, "I was just catching up with the guy in front, and I just grabbed the slightest bit of front brake, and then that was it. I didn't really know much more about it.
It's crazy,
but
yeah,
yeah,
it's very similar to what happened to Zarco too. Like you think he's fine, he's in a good position, and he just grabs the slightest bit of front brake when you're leaning one way or the other, and the whole bike just goes out from under you.
Yeah,
it was difficult. But like I said, Bagnaia, he did well. He's got a calm, collective head on those shoulders, I think, and there's not much pressure on him going into the season. And I don't think at the moment there's much pressure on him going forward in the season. Most of it's on Miller, so I think he's got a lot of room to manoeuvre and a lot of room to, perform and do well. But moving on, actually, I just want to quickly mention. I say quickly, gloss over KTM. But we might as well mention them. Obviously, Oliveira. Obviously, Oliveira. It wasn't a fairy tale return to Portimão, was it? Which is a shame.
The only rider to be a lap down during the race.
Yeah, he crashed, didn't he, and then rejoined. But
yeah,
I mean, I don't want to take it away from Binder, but before I move on from my point, Binder, solid result. Absolutely solid result. To come from, where did he start, Matt? I don't know if you have the starting positions on in front of you.
Yeah,
I think it was 15th.
1 second. Yes,
I want
15th.
to guess 15th. And he finished where? Just to clarify? Fifth. To go from 15th to 5th on a bike that, as we've seen from Oliveira and from the KTM Tech 3 guys, not looking as competitive as what we kind of hoped they would be coming into this weekend.
Nope.
And to go from 15th to 5th on any track is brilliant, but to be the one standing out for KTM, Brad Binder, I'd take my hat off to if I had one on. That is an amazing result, especially considering they've not really got off the ground, have they, this year?
Right.
No, it is a good result. I think partially with Portugal, it was due to the tyres. We weren't happy with Michelin's decision. It was the front tyre or something to do with the compounds, and it really messed them up this weekend or this time round at Portugal. But it didn't stop Brad Binder putting it in 5th, so it can't have been that bad. But that was the initial complaints anyway, or excuses, depending which one you want to view it as to why they didn't perform this well as they should have. But
yeah, I mean, KTM are still so young, and I do keep saying it, but people do forget that they are very, very young. And for us to sit here and say 5th is like a good result, but not like a standout. Oh my god, KTM are fifth. Does go to show how far they've come, really, in a way, because
Definitely.
yeah, they've won a couple of races last year. Well, 3 races, sorry, last year. Fifth place for us to be like it's good, and it's a great result for Brad coming from how far back he came. It just goes to show like the standard that everyone's sort of set for KTM. Well, I have no doubt that they'll bounce back at tracks that suit them a little bit more.
Yeah.
And they'll do a lot better. But it is a case of waiting to see what they do because again, everyone can sit there and say, you know, Ducati at Austria, KTM at Austria, and places like that, and Yamaha at Misano, and say, you know, when the bike fits the track and this and that. But you only win championships like Suzuki when you're competitive all across the board. So, yeah, I think KTM are struggling, but it will be a case of seeing how they develop through the year anyway. But fifth place, Brad Binder, I think if I am just going to put my rider of the day in quickly, I think that might be a contender because that is a brilliant result.
There are yeah. Touching on that, there are a few, and I'm still trying to work it out. But hopefully, by the end and shortly, I'll have figured it out.
I'm not
if you want to touch on, have you not?
I was gonna. I think the thing everyone has talked about, and you want to talk about good results. Marc Marquez coming back.
Oh yeah, we haven't even mentioned him yet. Jesus.
To qualify, to come back 9 months, 265 days. That number has been drilled into my head over the past weekend. To qualify 9th and then finish 7th. I mean, he even said coming into this weekend, I have no benchmark. I don't have a set position I want to finish, where I want to qualify. I just want to come back and see how I do. And you really started seeing it in like Q2, where he's like getting ready, he's getting geared up to go, and he's just working his right arm and he's flexing it. And you're like, he's getting a little sore there. You know, how is this going to go? And you know, he played the mark games that he plays during qualifying, so he hasn't lost that, you know, edge, that, you know, the intelligence he has. And to finish where he did, I mean, you really can't ask for a better result coming back after 9 months away.
Yeah. On that, for me, if Marquez would have rolled around and been 3 laps down and finished that race with, I don't know, if he'd have done 10 laps and had just said, you know what, that's it for me. Yeah, I'm not a Honda man, but I would have, you know, I'd have took my hat off to him, because to do what he's done and go through what he's gone through, it only takes a certain percentage of people to go through that and to say, you know what, even though it could be career changing, career ending, to think, nah, I'm not having any of that, and to come back and be straight back in and to finish 7th at a track that is, you want to talk about physical tracks. I mean, it doesn't really get much more physical than what is being labeled as the roller coaster. That's unbelievable. I mean, he took his helmet off and he's sitting there like wiping tears from his eyes. That is, you make no less of a man to me crying his eyes out. I mean, that takes some absolute cojones, if you like.
And it's a track he hasn't raced at before on that current, you know, motorbike.
Right.
He didn't race last season at Portimão, so it adds some further credence to it that he pulled it off. And I think finishing where he did was just incredible. And he even fought at the beginning, you know, the first lap or so, he was really, you know, taking it to the front and really giving it a go. I think his body told him, actually, like, come on, let's calm down now, or you're going to end up with a gravel trap. So, but even that, it was just an amazing comeback. And I kind of, to be honest, I forgot for most of the race. I totally forgot he was there.
Yeah,
but in a way, that was a good thing, because it meant he wasn't pushing it, you know, to the limits. We weren't seeing him fighting at the front, trying to just keep up with everyone else at the front. We didn't hear it, you know, we didn't see him go off into the gravel trap and crash. We saw him take the checkered flag, and that was just brilliant. It was the best thing. I think I said in the podcast last week that if he gets a points position, that's like, solid. That's something that he can be proud of, and that he managed it, and it's something he can be proud of. And going forward, it puts him in a really, really good position now. And I'd say, I don't want to say Marc Marquez is back, but he's back. In a way.
Yeah, I'm going to put my my lottery numbers in this week, because I did say 38.4 for qualifying, and I did actually say a top 8 for Marc Marquez when Josh said top 15. So I mean, realistically,
did I say top 15? No.
I think you said points scoring. I mean, technically you are right.
I did say,
if you want to take that accolade,
the point scoring, both right there.
But yeah, it's phenomenal. I mean, to come back from that and just, like I say, if he'd have gone around 3 laps and said, no, that's enough for me, and then gone, let's go to a ref, I would have still given him the applause that he deserves, because it doesn't matter what you support or what kind of side of the fence that you're on with Marquez or whoever, you have got to respect somebody that does that. Like, it doesn't matter.
Definitely.
It doesn't matter who you are. If you don't respect that, in my eyes, you're not really a true fan of this sport, because you've got to understand what he's gone through, and just the rehab you've seen the guy going through. I mean, he's had 3 operations, flown all around the world, getting specialist treatment, gone through some absolute mega pain to get back and race. Like, fair play. Just fair play to the guy.
I think 2 of the riders you have to congratulate and respect is the 2 LCR Hondas for not crashing and actually finishing the race. So
let's give Honda a big round of applause for finishing the race.
Alex Marquez, he finished the race, couldn't believe it, behind his brother, no less. But Nakagami, to be fair, all seriousness, for him to finish the race after after what he's been through, it's fair play
too.
Fair play to him, honestly. Finishing above Vinales, I mean, he managed it. So fair play to him on that one, because I wouldn't have expected him to finish where he did. So fair play to the Honda guys. Who are we moving on to next? That's one we've kind of skipped over, is Aprilia and the Spargaro.
I was literally just looking at that as well.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's a hell of a finish.
Yeah, 6th place. I mean, I guess now that we've gotten away from Qatar, we are seeing that this bike is capable of top 10 finishes. It's not battling for podiums yet. Do we see Davi come in? Because he did do the testing. Maybe if he does come in, because Salvadori finished 14th, but when you've got out of 16 riders finishing, I mean, that's it. He was 38 seconds back. So, I mean, the rider above him in 13th was Petrucci. He was 29 seconds back. So you've got almost a 9-second gap between the two. Like, this is starting to become a trend with Salvadori. Like, Aprilia's got to do something. They're not going to be able to compete for team or constructor championships at this point, because Yamaha, with just one bike, they can't do it. And Yamaha is taking off. If Ducati can get stuff right with Jack, they're going to be taking off. Aprilia's got to do something now before it's impossible to not finish last again.
Yeah. I mean, Aprilia are the only team, along with Suzuki, that run 2 bikes as a manufacturer. And I'm stating the obvious here, that like Suzuki and Aprilia are in 2 different worlds. So, and I don't want to disrespect Savadori, but when you've got 2 riders like Mir and Rins, yes, Rins has crashed out, but the guy's going to fight for top 5s, and you've got Savadori that is, let's set the record straight. Let's call a spade a spade. He's not where Espargaro is.
No, he's way off.
Yeah, I think Aprilia are kind of looking at it this way, where they've got this next test at Mugello with Dovi, and if Dovi is confident enough that on 2 different tracks he feels there or thereabouts, and Aprilia can get around it, I think they'll probably move him aside and get Dovi on it. Like at the
they'll
end of the
need
day,
to.
they want, if they had Dovi on it, if Dovi said I'll race next week at Reth or the week after, sorry, they'd do it. Like they'd move Salvadori aside straight away. But Dovi's kind of waiting confidence-wise, like, okay, where does this bike suit? If it's not a Reth, is it going to work at Mugello?
He's seen the results of Espargaro, and I think he'll be pretty happy with 6th place, massively. 8 seconds off the pace of Quartararo. And I think Dovi, obviously we don't know what's going on behind the scenes and what Dovi's said. Obviously we know that he seems to be quite fairly happy with how the test went, but I don't know if there's anything he wanted to see from that bike going forward, but I think he'll be impressed from today, surely.
I mean, if I don't want to sound harsh again, but for me, if Espargaro can finish 6th, the bike, he's used to the bike, it's made for him. But if we're looking at like 2022, if Dovi's at the level that he was at before he left, then for me, if Espargaro can fight for top 6, top 8, then Dovi's, you would think, going to be in that same question. Like, he's going to be top 6, top 5. And, I mean, for Aprilia to get a top 5, that'd be amazing if they can get 2 bikes near the top like 8. That's massive for someone like Aprilia. If you're talking on what Matt was on about with kind of getting rid of that remark as the worst bike or the bottom bike, if they can get in that top 10 regularly with 2 riders, that's the next step. Because I think they all know that Savadori is at the minute kind of collecting extra data in a sense, and I do not mean that disrespectfully, but they know that they need a guy on it that is going to be able to get in that top 10. And Dovi's that guy, so it's a way of convincing him. And let's not forget, there's no guarantee that Dovi's coming back. There's no guarantee that he wants the Aprilia. It's MotoGP. Anything can happen. Somebody might get injured again, or somebody might just say, I'm retiring. It sounds daft, but it only takes something like that for him to say, well, actually, I don't want to go to Aprilia. I want to go to whoever that spot comes available with. I mean, you've heard about Morbidelli, that he's peeved off with Yamaha, that if anywhere does come available, that he's almost saying, I want a factory team, because he feels like he deserves it. So if that spot becomes available, would Dovi go there? If they wanted Dovi, do you know what I mean? It's all a bit this and that with the driver market, but there's no guarantees that Dovi is 100% coming back with Aprilia. But they do need him. If they want to make that next step, they need Dovi, for me.
Definitely.
I don't know about you guys.
No, I agree with you 100% on that front. Anything else you want to add, Matt, or are you wanting to move on?
No, it's pretty much cut and dry with the Aprilia. They either need to do something, get Dovi on that bike, or basically, I don't want to say call the season a loss, but deal with what they have. Because you got to do one or the other. You either have to get Dovi in there on that other bike, or you're going to be at the bottom of the list again.
Yeah,
but
definitely,
I agree.
I think the thing we haven't touched on yet is Quartararo dominating this race.
Yeah, absolutely.
He started on pole, and like we talked about earlier, he dropped down to 6th. But then from there, from lap 1 to 8, was just able to pick riders off, 1 lap or 2 laps, and by lap 9 he was in the lead and just never let go. And like we said with Rins, just forced Rins to make a mistake and basically guarantee him the win.
Yeah, just kept up in that pace, didn't he, lap by lap?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was on another level. He was really the old Quartararo from like the beginning of last season. We saw, definitely.
Yeah, and it was something cool to see, because like usually when you're watching racing, it's like one of the first few laps is the fastest, and then it's pretty much set from there because they're on fresh tires. Yeah, they might have more fuel, but they usually set a faster lap, and then from there, it's sort of like that's the benchmark. But to see every lap, him or Rins setting the fastest lap over and over, you're like, where are they going to stop? Like, where's the point where they quit setting fastest laps and just sort of like settle in?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean that was Quartararo's plan. It was a case of, okay, you want to stick with me, then you've got to go with my pace. And Rins almost thought, all right, then I'll kind of win or bust sort of thing. I'll go with it. I'll try and match the pace. Kept getting quicker, and it was just a ticking time bomb at that stage of this Suzuki's either gonna go for the win and almost be left with no tyre at all,
Yeah.
or he's going to have to ease off, and the tyre went off a lot earlier than what Rins wanted it to. And yeah, I think, to be fair, a lot of people will slate Rins for it, and yeah, I think Josh is right that Rins is a case of first half he's one rider, and the second half he's a different kind of rider in the sense of like doing it right one way and doing it right the other. But I give most of the credit to what Rins did to Quartararo. I think he just, race management wise, 10 out of 10. I mean, he won the race, but like the way he broke away with Rins, made it just him and Rins, kept up in the pace just to increase the gap and to frustrate Rins. Brilliant. I mean, it's champion kind of level. A little bit like a Lorenzo sort of vibe. Josh, do you think
definitely.
something like that?
Yeah, I am feeling the Lorenzo vibe from him in that race. Definitely, it was quite methodical, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It wasn't a Marquez-esque kind of. I don't want to say brash, but I am going to say it wasn't like a brash kind of Marquez-esque style race for him. It was definitely more of a methodical Lorenzo style race, and it's something he needs to continue doing and have that consistency. Because that's what let him down last season. He got himself in a bit of a rut and didn't get out of it. But if he can go, continue this season with that consistency from the last couple of races, he's in a really, really good position going forward.
Yeah, I think that classic Lorenzo thing that we're talking about is you almost felt like, and this is the Quartararo thing of this season, of if he gets out in front, I'm talking like 2015 Lorenzo, if he got out in front, it was like, look, you can, if you don't get back at him in the next corner, not next lap, if you're not in front of him the next corner, he's off. Like there's no two ways about it. You're either going and stopping him like Marquez would, or like a Rossi, snap straight back at him. Because if you don't, it's going to be tick, 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 sort of like lap after lap after lap, just lap record. And the Yamaha does suit that sort of style, that methodical, smooth style. And yeah, it did give me a big Lorenzo vibe, which is, I suppose, only a good sign, really, for Quartararo.
Definitely. For you.
Just to touch as well, just before we wrap this up, just to touch on the rookies and how they performed in this race. Obviously, one was absent. Martin with that huge crash he had, and we hope he's back in Jerez. Whether he will be or not, I'm not sure, but we do hope he returns soon because he is something special, and I do want to see him fighting at the front. And I'm looking forward to his return, definitely. I don't know if you two have anything to add to that on the Martin incident, but
yeah, it was a nasty crash. To be fair, he seems very unlucky with this sort of thing. It happened with Moto2 in testing before he even got on the bike for real in 2019, sorry, before the pre-season testing. I think he broke a leg, and then it happened again when he was racing, where he seems to go a long period of time where he builds up this confidence, and then he has a bad crash and it almost stops his progression. But we all know what he's capable of, and we all know the progression he's made from Moto3 upwards. We all, everyone knows Martin's a special rider, and hopefully, like you say, he can be back for Jerez, because he's one of them where he's only going to get better race by race. So yeah, I hope he's all right and everything with how that went.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Anything for you, Matt, on that one?
No, just wishing him a speedy recovery. I mean, that was a nasty crash.
Yeah, he looked like a rag doll, didn't he?
Yeah, watching it live, like you just saw, like whenever he landed, he's like on his hands and knees, and he's not really moving. You're like, this is not good. And I mean, yeah, they're saying he could have multiple broken bones, head contusion. You know, it's one of those things where, hopefully he can not try to come back too fast. That's always my biggest worry with something like it. Is he going to try to come back too fast and risk injuring it more, kind of like Mark did last year? So, as much as these riders want to get back on the bike and get going again, take your time, relax,
definitely.
and recover before you do more damage.
Yeah, I think you're probably repeating every doctor in the world that says this to all the riders, and they all go, yeah.
Okay,
cool.
Yeah, we'll do.
Sure, doc. Walk out. How long do I have to wait?
Yes, straight in one ear, straight out the other. He'll probably be sitting there nodding to all the doctors and be thinking, hurrah.
Yeah, definitely. But luckily, it was quite a race for the other two rookies.
Yeah.
Bastianini in 9th and Marini in 12th. Not really much to say. I think they just, got their heads down and rid their own race, and that was about it. They decent points haul for Bastianini, I think. Marini didn't do too bad as well. So I think they're just obviously building strength to strength, just getting used to the feel of the bike, getting used to being in MotoGP. And I think, I don't know, I'm hoping like towards the end of the season we'll see a surprise qualifying performance from one of the two, or a surprise race performance from one of the two. That would be quite enjoyable.
Well, I mean, this race was interesting too because Marini qualified 8th. So it was similar to Martin in Qatar 1, where similar, where he ended up high, and you're like, okay, but he's a rookie. He's not going to stay here. It was kind of the same with Martin, where it's like, or Marini, where it's like, okay, he's 8th. He's not gonna stay there. He is gonna drop back, but can he minimize how many positions he loses?
Yeah.
Which I feel he did. I mean, he'd lost 4 positions. It could have been a lot worse.
For a rookie, that's that's decent. And again, let's not forget that those two, not only are they rookies, they're on a bike that last year and the year before you would have said, hands down, with the Aprilia, is the least competitive bike on the grid.
Yep,
definitely.
So for a rookie, like if they're not trailing around at the back on a less competitive bike, that's an amazing result. And to get in the top 10 like Bastianini did, brilliant. I think personally, I think that's like Josh said. It's just head down, keep going, chip away, and hopefully they can pick up. Yeah, hopefully they can pick up a good, maybe a top 6 somewhere like that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Along the line, that'd be a brilliant result. But either way, I think they're doing brilliant.
But to do like we did with Moto2, Moto3, top 3 was Quartararo, Bagnaia, and Mir. And for rider of the day,
ooh, that's gonna be tough. That is for GP.
Wow. Yeah,
I'm taking Binder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be on, like you said, a bike that is not competitive. The other KTMs were 13th, 15th, and 16th. The only thing breaking them up was Salvadori. So to have a bike and like that and be able to put it where he did, he deserves all the praise for this race.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good one.
Mine's going to be Marc Marquez.
I knew it.
And the thing is, my inner Yamaha is going, how dare you? But all like bias aside, I've already said it enough. I can't praise the guy enough. I don't think I really need to say that much on it, but I think if anybody gave him Rider of the Day, or I think they should do that. Actually, they do it in F1, don't they? The whole driver.
Yeah,
I think it's just a cool little thing with the fan interaction side of things. But yeah, Mark for me, absolute hats off. amazing.
I guarantee you, if they had some sort of like rider of the day, like F1 has driver of the day, Marquez would have gotten it hands down for this race.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Mine's got to be Alex Marquez for not crashing. But I'm joking. No, that's a joke. Sorry, Alex. If you're listening.
Oh, he is.
Famously,
like,
one
Martin,
of our highest listeners.
Yeah. So when Martin listened in. No, I really struggled. I thought to myself, right, Morbidelli is my rider of the day just for how he managed the fourth. But then I thought, no, he did well. But Bagnaia coming from, what was he, 11th on the grid to finish second.
Yeah, true.
Coming back, and especially from that disappointment of losing that pole position. But then I just thought, no, I'm just going to give it again to Quartararo. I think another, like I did the Moto2 for first position. I think Quartararo just commanded the race so well and led it so well. And obviously not from the off, but from early on. And he just controlled the race, and that was like a championship kind of winning race from Quartararo there. So I think I will give my rider of the day to Quartararo.
Yeah.
Where did you think Morbidelli started?
Did he start 11th, or am I getting confused?
I think he was referring to Bagnaia. I think he said Bagnaia.
Oh, yeah, sorry,
okay.
Bagnaia. Yeah,
I was about to say, Morbidelli was 5th.
Bagnaia was 11th, so I nearly got rider of the day for me for his performance, but yeah.
But,
I think whilst we get the fantasy side of things running, just on that with what you were saying about Quartararo, I get what you mean. Like, I think picking the guy that won is a little bit like cliche, if you like. But it's understandable. I mean, it's not like he pipped it or anything like that. He literally bossed it from start to finish once he got to the front. So yeah, that's fair enough. I think all three of our picks are decent picks anyway. So
yeah, and he's leading the Riders' Championship now with 61 points. Bagnaia is in second with 46 points. So this is quickly. I don't want to compare it to last season because he only won the first 2 races and it dropped off. But he's starting to put a gap there. So if he can keep it going, and I just wanted to point this out. Mark scored 9 points. He is 14th out of 23 in one race.
Yeah, everyone else needs to start just collecting as many points as they can, just in case.
Well, I think if we take out turn 3 at Areth and just make it one big straight round to turn 6, I think Mark will have no kind of PTSD or anything. I think he'll probably win.
Yeah.
Little flyover just for Mark on that one.
Flyover, yeah.
But yeah, moving over to fantasy, we have a new leader in, I don't know who this is, Ant-Man Motorcycles from Australia.
Yeah, I saw that. I sent him a message just to tell him to leave, just so that I can get back.
Yeah, Bono's dropped down to second, and then a certain someone is in third. So
there you go. You've turned it around. I said you'd turn it around after. Was it the first one or the second one that you? I think you were like 9th, and you were quite annoyed.
The first one.
Yeah. See, there you go.
I've been keeping the faith in Jack Miller a bit too long now, so I need to boot him. Yeah,
you and Ducati, Josh. I think.
Yeah.
After this last race, I'm like, no, I gotta make up a change, and I contemplated dropping him or Oliveira. And I was like, I can get more of a return for dropping Miller and picking up somebody else. So,
yeah,
he had to go.
I think Pecco will be making his way back into my team. I think I'll probably put my tail between my legs for getting rid of him.
I never
was there
dropped
from the
him.
start for me. I believed in him.
Yep,
from the start.
And Josh, are you able to pull up the grid rival? Because I tried going on earlier today. And the whole app just kept telling me to go away.
Not bother. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to get on it, and I'm trying to make changes to my team because I had 4 open slots and I had to pick a new constructor. And every time, like, I picked one rider, and then from there, it told me my balance was 0, and like, would not let me go back into the app after that.
Yeah, I think they're. I can't see the league standings. I can now. Yeah, so I'm in 5th.
Okay.
I'm slowly dropping down the order. Baba Boy is in 1st with 2,602 points. So he's not well in the lead, but he's in the lead, and yeah, he's like 200 ahead of me. So I'm pretty much out there, 150 ahead of me anyway. But Matt, you're down in 11th, so
Oh
no
dear,
more near the
Matt.
bottom. So out of 15.
So where are you in the normal GP one, Josh? Where are
I
you?
think I'm like 8th or something like that. I'm pretty.
What's your
I
team
don't know
name?
exactly. Is it Tiger Motorsport after All City? Of course,
I'm getting
plug
in
in
there
them.
right now.
Oh yeah, I don't even think of that when I've seen when I've scrolled down.
Yeah,
Tiger Motorsport?
I think so. I might be wrong on that one.
That's 4th.
Oh, you
I'm a
4th?
4th. Oh, see, not too bad, not too bad.
So wait, are you
Yeah.
3rd? You say, Matt?
Yeah, because we got
Ooh.
Ant-Man Motorsports in 1st, Bunno GP in 2nd, Rins 1010 in 3rd, Tiger Motorsport in 4th, Takanakagawa Gami in 5th, 77765er in 6th, Matic Motorsports in 7th, Buffalo Bills in 8th, S07 in 9th, and then Dana Cole Motorcycle in 10th.
So we've got us 2nd, 3rd, 4th.
Let's try and get a 1, 2, 3. Preferably me 1, but we'll see.
Yeah, we gotta figure out how to take Ant-Man down.
We do, don't we?
Yeah. But overall,
he had almost the same team as me too.
Yeah, I saw that as well. I saw that he's got a similar team. Yeah, but I think that is that everything, guys. Have we covered
I think
everything?
we've covered everything. We have. It's been a long old one, but we've covered it all. We've got through it. There's lots to discuss. So it's been enjoyable.
Yeah, and then next week, like we said, is a week off, and then in 2 weeks we go to Jerez. So next week we'll probably do another episode like we did last week, where we just sort of break down the news, and then do a track preview. I'm gonna try to do it a little better. I gotta work a little better with the syncing word, and this time it will be on MotoGP because this track is on MotoGP. On it, So what bike I'll use is yet to be decided.
I think it's only right that you do what I think a good theme to go for would be the previous winner at that track. So you picked the KTM, and you did. When I listened to the track preview that you did, you picked it because it was the slow bike.
I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, it'll be because they won, and then you were like, no, it's because they're the slowest. And I was like, that was your opportunity to say, I know, I'm in it with the stats and everything.
I didn't even think of that.
So you should do like the previous winner to say like, competitive bike.
So it's got to be Fabio.
I mean, that might be why I said to pick the previous winner. I'm not suggesting anything, but yeah, it'd be a good theme to go for. I guess you could do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, next week we'll do like a little filler episode. I don't know out of the three of us who will be doing it. It might be all three of us. I don't know yet. But yeah, if anybody's got any suggestions or any kind of questions or news topics that anybody wants us to cover, then feel free to tweet us at RedSectorMotoGP on Twitter and whatnot, or to any three of us if you follow us individually. Yeah.
Oh, just quickly, actually, we did get one message from Joey again, who asked a question about how he thinks Suzuki's are doing in their performance this season, because he didn't feel that they're doing that well. What do you guys think on what Joey's said?
Yeah, I spoke briefly to him on Discord, which, again, if anybody wants to join Discord that we all chat in, we'll leave that in the, if you go on our Twitters, you'll find it somehow on my Twitter as well. But yeah, on that, I was speaking to Joey, and I think it's just a case of more the rider than the bike, because like we said with Rins and Mia could have been 2nd and 4th if Rins would have just eased off and taken 2nd. And to say that, what he was saying on Discord was simply, they won the championship last year and almost why are they not fighting for wins? But as we learned last year, Suzuki is more of a consistent top 5. Like that is where they got a lot of their points from. So Mir's doing it. Rins just needs to do it as well. And then all of a sudden, Suzuki looked like this consistently top 5 performing bike. I think it's just a case of Rins bringing it home and knowing when not to push.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the main thing with it.
Suzuki's in a pretty good place, yeah. I think
the
they've
bike's
got
not
the
changed
riders
too
out.
much. Yeah, the bike's not changed too much. So
And that was one of the talking points during the off season was like, for Suzuki, don't change too much.
Yeah.
And sort of figure out this, because the one thing everyone seems to forget was Davide Brivio leaving. That shook up the team in a good bit, and so they have to not only try to contend with being the world champion, but also losing a crucial part of their team and having to keep up the success they had last season with a whole new structure around them. So, I mean, for the most part, going on this season, I mean, they're not doing horrible. Are they doing what they'd like to? Probably not. I mean, looking at the standings, you've got Mir in 5th and Rins in 7th. So,
I mean, if you're comparing it to last year, the year they won the championship, they're doing better this year than what they did last.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mir after 3 races last year, I believe. What did he? I think I read something that if Marquez finished 5th at Portimão, we would have the same amount of points as Mir did after 3 races, and that's like 14 points? It's obviously only
something
a handful.
Like that.
So yeah, I mean, Suzuki are doing better than what they did last year. Yeah, they're probably not where they want to be winning races because that's where everybody wants to be. But it's a marathon, not a sprint. They're doing better than what they did last year. They just need Rins to do what he should have done and bring it home 2nd, 3rd, 4th rather than binning it. But yeah, it's an interesting point. But me personally, I don't think they're that far off compared to where they should be anyway. So. But nonetheless, it's a good point to bring up.
Yeah. No reason to hit the panic button yet.
Just yet, no, definitely not.
Yeah.
So I think that's it for today. I think we hit all the points, answered all the questions. So be sure to, like we said before, subscribe, leave a review, leave a rating. Let us know what you think of the show. Any changes you think that'll help. Let us know. We're always open to trying different things. So
yeah, I was also just going to say as well on that, for the people that I have spoken to that have been asking for it to be on YouTube, this podcast, it is something that we're going to start working towards, whether it be this podcast or the next or whatever. We are going to try and work towards more platforms and as many platforms as possible. So on that front, we are working towards it. It's just a case of us sorting every technical issue we have under the sun every week.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something we're working towards. And hopefully the next podcast you listen to, Josh will be the 3rd member of the podcast, sounding nice and crisp. So we've got improvements happening.
Much better.
Yeah, we've got improvements happening every week. So we're just working towards it, really.
It will happen. It's going to happen next one. So that's why I'm waiting. I just cannot wait for the next race review, because not only will it be another race review, but I'll be sounding much better. So.
So, all right. And with that,